First of all, thank you everyone for not just to taking the time for being here, but yet to dedicate your whole life to serve our city and especially serving our community. Those that dedicate your programming here and other of you that also do citywide that touch our tip on Manhattan, the higher points, where a sixth floor at George Washington High School, the School of Greenspan, Jacob Javits, Henry Lafontaine, Henry Kissinger, allowed to see the view of the Tampa Sea Bridge and the lower Manhattan. So I'm so lucky to be here with friends, people who believe that there's not a contradiction to develop a society where the institutions, academic, and the business do well in their life, at the same time that we take our working class to be middle class and to create turnout society, especially being a role model in community in our city to a place where working class live with dignity and to make a place where a dream to be middle class should become a reality. So here we will again. I'm so grateful for to have a friend with our speaker Corey Johnson, who has a vision for the city of New York, but he also understands that everything is local, and he understands that he has a strong vision for Manhattan. So he knows that representing the down part of Manhattan, also taking here, and we hope that this a new opportunity that we have working together allowed to see our great island from the tip to the bottom as one community where education, art, opportunity are not determined by the secret, but opportunity that should be created by the investments that we make. So we were here from the speaker, but I know that our partners here, Lee Goldman, who is the Dean of Medical School at Columbia University, he has also other responsibility. I wanted for the Dean to say a few words, and then the President then turn into our speaker to share his vision on how he sees the way for all to work together. So let's welcome our Dean, Lee Goldman from Medical School, Columbia University.
I just want to say to Councilman Rodriguez, first of all, thank you. Thank you for all you do for the district here. We're just enormously appreciative to be part of this wonderful community, but thank you so much. I'll start off by apologizing. I'm going to have to leave as soon as I stop speaking because I squeezed this into a bunch of other things, but I wouldn't have missed this because it's such an important event to be here, to be able to honor Speaker Johnson, to be here with Monsignor Sullivan, with President Boudreaux of City College. This is a community, and we at Columbia are just so proud to be part of the community. Our commitment here is steadfast. It's been almost well, it's over 90 years now since Columbia University moved its medical school and subsequently its schools of public health, dentistry, and nursing here to Washington Heights. I often describe our medical practice, which is one of the largest in the East Coast, largest in the world, as a place to which people come from all over the country, all over the world for very, very special care. At the same time, we're equally proud to care for the people who live here in the neighborhood who are literally our neighbors, our friends, and our colleagues. And that commitment is steadfast and longstanding, and we're extremely proud of it. Many of you have probably had children who were born at what we still call Columbia Presbyterian, children who are taken care of here, and we're committed to you and to your health and your welfare. We have a number of educational programs as well, and we're proud to be part of this Alianza building and to see it succeed and become a vibrant part of the community. I also want to say how committed we are to education and to diversity. Among our peer Ivy League medical schools and other schools, Columbia has the most diverse student body. We have a number of programs for college students and high school students. We also participate in the local Head Start program. So we have a commitment to help the entire community become, as Councilman Rodriguez said, middle class and people who appreciate and can realize the American dream. When I first came here now, almost 12 years ago, I said part of our success would be measured by two developments. One would be if we got a Starbucks. Now, you can say Starbucks is good or bad, but the fact that we now have two Starbucks suggests that national chains see this as a place they want to be, just like other places that are up and coming. And secondly, that after dark, a mother could push a baby carriage across the street and not be worried. And I want to thank our local law enforcement team because you help us with that, but this is now a safe, vibrant neighborhood where mothers can raise children who, as we said, can realize the American dream. We're also here to be sure as they realize that American dream, they'll be as healthy as possible, and we're very proud of that. So I want to thank the councilman, the speaker, and everybody here who makes this such a wonderful neighborhood for Columbia to be part of. Thank you very much.
Before I call in the press, I'd like to ask Monsignor to also say a few words. This institution will not be here. You know, Alianza Moisés Pérez had a dream of creating this building, and it was important for our community. But also the institution went through some economic problems. And it is through Catholic Charity that most of the program being run here in Washington Heights. And thanks with his whole team who are here with Monsignor, but I also would like for him to say a few words because we are here. Not only they are, you know, providing us a light breakfast, but also everything that happened in this building related to the programming are under the responsibility of Monsignor Solomon. So thank you.
Council member, thank you. Council Speaker, thank you for being here. Just a very few words. As Council member Ydanis said, it is our Catholic Charities Alianza team, Eddie Severio, Beatriz Diaz-Tavares, Luz Tavares, who are the ones responsible for the continuation of the incredible good work that was going on here before, and we were privileged to be asked to partner with that in, admittedly, a very difficult situation. Since we have become part of that partnership, we're very proud that the programs have grown, so more young people are being helped to stay in school, prepare for college, to have their family lives a little bit more stable because of the work that we've been able to do with people in the communities. We're also very proud that this building, which is such an important symbol of Dominican culture, is still here. There's still a job to do in terms of ensuring its future stability, its future growth, but it is here and it is functioning thanks to a lot of good work. So it is a privilege for Catholic Charities to be part of this community. It is incredibly important that we continue to do so. Gracias a todos por la oportunidad que Caridades Católicas tiene ser parte de esta comunidad para contribuir lo que podemos hacer para crear la juventud, la cultura y todo el desarrollo de esta comunidad. Gracias.
Thank you, Monsignor. Now someone that we are so lucky, you know, those of us who live here. You know, the president of one of the most important academic institutions, City College, live in our community. He take the train from Washington. And I remember when I took the UN Model class, he took us to his apartment, you know, taking us to Princeton and allowing us to have those experiences. So from having the opportunity to work with him when he got a City College in 91, we took over the building in 91 too, and he was there, you know, very open, supporting of the students. Then he became the chairman of the political science department, the director of the Colin Powell Institute, and today the president of City College, Professor Boudreau, is a resident of Washington Heights. So let's welcome him.
I actually had a different Ydanis Rodriguez story I was going to tell you to start. But since he's talked about taking over the building, in 1991, when I was about the same age, we were about 26, 27 years old, I was an assistant professor at City College. And Ydanis and a group of people, and he took every class I taught. And they came to my house, we worked together. And we had a departmental secretary, Celeste Castillo, who one day pulled me aside. And she said, I have to give you some advice. These guys this Ydanis, you shouldn't be seen with him. He's going to ruin your reputation. But I think we did okay, yeah? The other story I wanted to tell you, though, was 2 years ago on graduation day, Ydanis and I were at City College, and our commencement speaker was Michelle Obama. And we were both given the opportunity to go up and have a picture with Michelle Obama and everybody else on campus who wanted that picture, or we could come down on the field and be there when the students came into the building. And so I went down. And what I found down there was me and Ydanis and one of my colleagues, Doris Sinfon. And so we had the opportunity, a half an hour, to sort of look out at these young people coming in, getting ready to receive their degree and go out into the world. And Ydanis said to me, he talked to me about his life at CCNY, but also the lives of his children and what they can expect to experience in their future. They come into the world with the expectation that they will be secure, that they'll be educated, that they will live a prosperous life. I come to an event like this, and I move through the room, and more in positions of authority and power and influence, I see my students. I taught political science. So of course, in this room, there are a lot of former political science students. I see my students here. We are, CCNY, next to Baruch College, in the entire nation, the most successful college in promoting social mobility among our students. Meaning, more students come in as a member of the lowest 20th percentile socioeconomically and eventually develop to where they are in the upper 20th percentile. So for me, as the president of City College, that becomes the seed of my vision for the institution. Yes, that's what we're doing with our students, and we've done it since 1847. People talk about the old City College and the new City College. There is no difference. There is no difference between Jonas Salk and Colin Powell and Andrew Grove, the great graduates of our first century, and the students who are coming through our office today. So my vision for the college is this: if in the lives of our students we are creating that social mobility, then we need for the entire institution, top to bottom, to be an institution dedicated to an all-out assault on the barriers to social mobility. And I mean in terms of what we do research on, how we talk to the public, how, who comes to City College to learn about immigration and economic gaps and income inequality and all the other problems that bedevil the individual's progress from poverty to prosperity. I'm happy to say that we are now involved with the councilman in looking at plans for Upper Manhattan, the rezoning plans. I think we share concerns about making this district prosperous and sustainable and a place where people can progress. But if we are that institution, if we are an institution that is top to bottom dedicated to promoting social mobility, to identifying and attacking those obstacles, that means we also have to be in the community. And so I am here in part because I was invited, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm also here to say that our doors are open for the kinds of engagements that I know matter to the people in this room. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much, Ydanis, both for today and for everything you do in the district. Thank you.
Now let's hear from brief before I get into the speaker to the partner that support each other. I know that the speaker, a lot of Assemblywomen, and the Assemblywoman is one of the big supporters to Speaker Johnson. So let's call for Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to be brief. I wanted to say that I'm so happy to be home, budget-free, back from Albany. It was a crazy budget season, but now I'm able to do what I love most, which is to be here with my community, enjoying the time that we have here. I want to thank the council member for bringing the leaders of this community together. And I want to welcome our speaker, Corey Johnson, who I had the pleasure of getting to know very well while I worked with Ydanis at the city council. And I just want you to know, Corey, that this is a community of fighters, a community of leaders that are dedicated to empowering the people in our community from the working class up. And that is what leads our community. That is the mission that we all have. And I know that you know that Ydanis is our fighter. And I've learned from that school. And so I'm in Albany fighting for the people of this community. But as we see the needs in this community, it's a community that is in change, that is in flux. And our main goal is to keep the soul of this community intact, to make sure that as the community changes, the educational attainment levels of our students are kept, that the talent that we have here in the art community, in culture, is preserved. We have a ton of women in this room, and I always have to give a shout out to the women. But we have a brain trust of women in this room that have led the way and are the reason that I'm even able to dream of being up here and doing the work that I do. And as you get to know the leaders in this room, I implore you to get to know the women here, because they're leaders in their field. They're women who advocate not only for the education of our children, but also for the empowerment of women in our community economically through the chambers. Rosita Romero's here. I see her right there. She fights really hard to make sure that women have their place in our society and that domestic violence doesn't exist. We have Mino Lora. We have Maria Lizardo, who is just amazing. We call her Wonder Woman. She does the work of 50 men, literally, bringing social services here. We have Angela Fernandez, who is an icon at this point when it comes to immigration services. And in this room, you will see what the needs of this community are. So as we go forward in this journey, we're supporting one another. We're supporting the work that's happening here. And I'm just blessed to be part of this team. So I welcome you uptown. You know this is your home away from home. And I hope that Ydanis has some mango for you if you made you come all this way. Thank you.
So, you know, in our speaker that you're here now, we have someone that know about challenges, know about obstacle. He always said, you know, I cannot speak for knowing that I know the reality of the Black and the Latino community without being Black or being Latino. I'm interested to represent the interest. I'm interested to sit down and work with partners. That's very important because sometimes we still live in our society where there's people dictating our present and future without creating that opportunity for every community to develop their own voices. So everyone has read already about Corey as a champion for all group. You know, he supported Sharpton for president when Sharpton ran. So when many of us in the Black and Latino community or the progressive, they were not there for the Black candidate, he was there for the Black candidate. When he was not thinking about that, he was translating opportunity for him to be the speaker. So that's Corey, someone that knows the reality of the gays and lesbian community, someone that knows that we live in a city that still opportunity are dictated by the zip code or where we are, children born and raised. He is determined to continue closing the gap and leaving a legacy, someone that I had no doubt had a great future also in Manhattan, in the whole city. And I'm looking to be a partner with him for whatever we would do in the next 4 years in the future to come. But before calling Rosa, I also like to, Corey, I also would like to say thank you to the Deputy Chief of Staff, Jason Goldman. A big round of applause. It is through Jason also that a lot of things that we need from the community is always there, what is that you need, and he will continue helping us. I want to highlight Fenios Peñamora, the former commissioner of DDC, because as we are discussing the Inwood, the future of Inwood, you remember when I did my State of the District 4 years ago, we presented a plan at 168 at the Columbia Auditorium that we call the future, the 20-30-year plan for Inwood, a home for people living here for decades and a destiny for the new coming. So this is the vision that we have, but now, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from the great friend, our speaker, Corey Johnson.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here up in Washington Heights with all of you. And before I talk about my dear, dear, dear friend, Ydanis, I also want to thank the NYPD and their service to our city and the community. I want to thank you all for being here this morning. It's so important to have you here. So before I speak about some of the issues that I think matter, of course, to local neighborhoods and the uptown community and communities all across the city, I want to talk a little bit, of course, about Ydanis, and I don't want to embarrass him or go on too long, but I think it's important for you all to hear about our relationship and about how he is viewed amongst other members of the council down at City Hall. Now, I'm not going to run you through his bio. You know it. You know where he's come from. You know how he came here and was a dishwasher, actually down in my district on 6th Avenue in the Village, and became a student activist, which is how he met President Boudreaux when he was a student at City College. But I want you to know that Ydanis' reputation, besides being a fierce champion and fighter for his district, is one of being a fierce champion and fighter for the vulnerable, the marginalized, the underrepresented. And he is never shy in taking on a fight or making his voice heard or causing a commotion when it comes to a cause that is just and right. And he does that privately when there are no cameras around and fighting for organizations in his district, like all of you who are here. He does that publicly when it comes to people that are being targeted or communities and groups that are being left behind. And he's someone that is not afraid to challenge power that exists to try to get more for the people who need it most. And so to be able to partner with him, to be a colleague with him, I am truly, truly grateful. Our relationship, and I'm not trying to bromance out too much here this morning, but our relationship is a very special relationship to me because I trust him 100%. And I trust him 100% not because he's a great colleague in the council, but because he's a great human being. Because he has the deepest integrity, and his entire career and the entire time I've known him have been dedicated to making this city a better place for all the right reasons. And so I am tremendously grateful that he invited me here this morning. Just after, I think it was the day after they announced that it looked like I was going to become speaker, I was in this room at a wild, crazy holiday party with Ydanis and with Carlos and with our fabulous assemblywoman. You know, I don't want to talk too much about this, but Ydanis ran an amazing race for speaker. And he was able to bring up issues and talk about things that other people wouldn't talk about. And he wasn't afraid to talk about it. And he was, as he should have been, very invested. And right when it became clear that it likely was going to be me to be speaker, he was so warm and gracious and supportive. And he said to me, I want the first thing you do after this has been announced is to come up to Washington Heights so that you can come and see my community and we can start our great relationship off with you being speaker in a great way. And to me, that really just touched me in many ways, and our relationship continues in that way and will continue that way. So I want you all to know that you know him with the fighting spirit he has in the community, but when the doors are closed, when there are no cameras around, when he's not getting press out of it, when no one's writing about it and no one's doing social media about it and no one's tweeting about it, Ydanis is the same guy. There is complete consistency across the board in his values, in his principles, and in his integrity and the respect that people have for him. So I want to really, really thank my dear friend, colleague, and brother, Ydanis Rodriguez. I want to again thank the president of City College, who Ydanis has told me about Dr. Boudreaux so many times, President Boudreaux so many times. And so I am really grateful to get to meet you, and I look forward to engaging with the council member on how we can continue to support the amazing work of your vital institution. And to all the folks that are here today, I see folks that I've met before. I see folks from some of the different amazing organizations, Dominican Studies, Puerto Rican Studies, Mexican Studies, social service organizations that are vitally important, not just to the Uptown community, but to the entire city of New York. And the few of the things I want to talk about, which I think are really, really important, and of course, totally affect Washington Heights, Inwood, and the entire Upper Manhattan neighborhoods, is the issues that you all face every single day, and you all in many ways do a better job at facing it than the city does, which is, even though all of the economic indicators, when you look on a piece of paper, the big ones that we talk about, are ones that most New Yorkers would want to feel good about, unemployment at an all-time low over the last decade and a half, jobs being announced and created, tens of thousands of them every month, month after month after month. Tourism at an all-time high. We set a record last month for last year. And the economy doing pretty well overall. Those numbers do not tell the story that you all know, and that your clients and constituents and the New Yorkers that Ydanis and I hear from every day, and the Assemblywoman every day, the reality that they have to live with, which is right now in New York City, 22% of New Yorkers are living in poverty. That's 1 in 5 people when you walk around New York City. 1 in 5 New Yorkers are living in poverty, and that's defined at the federal poverty limit, which is a very low limit actually. So when you go actually up to the poverty line and just above the poverty line, the number jumps to 44%. It doubles. So then 4 in 10 New Yorkers are living at the poverty line. Last night in the shelter system, 63,000 New Yorkers slept in our Department of Homeless Services shelters. Another approximately 5,000 New Yorkers were sleeping in HRA domestic violence shelters, predominantly women with children. Another 2,000 or so runaway homeless youth were sleeping in runaway homeless youth shelters. And it's approximated that we have about 5,000 chronically ill, chronically homeless New Yorkers who are unsheltered, living on the streets. So when you add those numbers up, you are almost at 80,000 people who are deemed homeless. That's not people who are deemed unstably housed. That's deeming people who are actually homeless right now, and the number is actually probably higher than that. And when we look at those numbers of the 62,000 people living in the shelter system, of course, predominantly people of color, many immigrants who came here to live the American dream and have been priced out of their communities and not gotten the upward mobility that they've needed from our city. And in that number, 23,000 are children under the age of 16 years old who were in a homeless shelter last night. And so even though from an aerial view, when you look at numbers on a piece of paper, the economy is doing well, unemployment is at an all-time low, tourism is at an all-time high, our budget jumped from $86 billion last year to $88 billion with a B in this upcoming year, you would think, wow, the city is doing really well. And what Ydanis and I talk about every single day down at City Hall is we have to make sure that those numbers really affect everyone, that everyone has the opportunity to get a good job. Everyone has the opportunity to receive quality health care. Everyone has an opportunity to have a path to citizenship. Everyone has an opportunity to be able to get the skills that they need to support themselves and their family. And the city of New York and city government doesn't do all that work and can't do all that work. And we rely on community-based organizations. Community-based organizations that have a long, deep, rich, and storied track record of delivering for the communities that they've been in for years, if not decades, and that have tremendous respect amongst municipal government and city agencies because of how they deliver in the communities that they're located in. And so to be here today with all of you, social service organizations, educational institutions and programs, cultural institutions that serve the Uptown community, that serve Washington Heights and Inwood, that work with Carmen and with Ydanis, to be with all of you is extraordinarily important to me, because even though I, of course, am still a council member that represents my own district, I now have a new responsibility in working with my colleagues in the council to understand how we lift up and support community-based organizations that do so much for the city of New York and that reach New Yorkers in ways that we, as a government, can't reach New Yorkers and probably shouldn't even try to reach New Yorkers because we don't have the track record and history of doing it. And so I wanted to really come by to introduce myself to you and to tell you that I'm here as an advocate and friend and ally with an open hand, and that my relationship with Ydanis is one where I have his back. And because I have his back, I have your back. And so whatever he needs to deliver on behalf of the neighborhoods and communities that he represents, he has my full, undivided support in ensuring that we make our communities safer and more just and more fair. And there is a tremendous amount of work to do. I know that the issues of gentrification, I know that the issues of overcrowding, I know that years and decades of disinvestment take a toll on neighborhoods and communities. And I also know that communities of color are the communities that for years have not seen the same level of resources and dollars from city government and municipal government, where other communities like my community that I represent have seen those investments, which means that I have to work in a close way with Ydanis and other members of the council to ensure that neighborhoods across the city that typically have not received their fair share of funding, that typically have not gotten the resources that they've needed for community-based organizations, for institutions and hospitals, for schools and universities and colleges, for social service organizations, for tenant organizations, for studies programs which work with diverse communities across the city, that we have to do more, and that part of my job is to be able to come, listen, understand, and deliver on behalf of those communities in a meaningful way. And I don't say this to create a expectation setting. It can't be done with a magic wand. I don't get to sort of stand up and say, everyone gets this. But as Ydanis said, I know that my own life experience is not the same as many people across New York City. And that sometimes the best thing to do is to not talk, but to listen. And so I come here in the spirit of listening. I come here in the spirit of wanting to learn more from you all and how the city can best deliver on behalf of the people that you all work with every single day. And each one of us has our own unique story. I think the latest numbers are we're getting close to 4 million New Yorkers, so who were not born in the United States of America, who were born in a foreign country and came here with a dream for themselves and for their family. I was not born, I was born in the United States of America, but not in New York City. I was born in a little tiny town about 25 miles north of Boston. I came here at 19 years old. I grew up in public housing. My mom was my lunch lady. She worked in the cafeteria at the school that I grew up in. And my father was a Pepsi truck driver and did landscaping on the weekends to support our family. And I came out at 16 years old in a little tiny town. I was the only openly gay student out of 1,500 kids in my school. I came out 6 months after Matthew Shepard had been murdered in Wyoming. And my story was a story of acceptance and of affirmation. And I came to New York At 19 years old, knowing two people and having two bags. Now, that's not the same experience that an immigrant has from another country who is coming here to attain a dream for themselves and for their families. But me coming here at 19 years old and being able to, over the course of less than 20 years, move here, be elected to the city council, and now be speaker, is in many ways because I received mentorship and support from community leaders. And that is what Ydanis does. That is what he did with his former chief of staff, now our great assemblywoman, Carmen de la Rosa. And that is what you all do with the folks that you work with every single day. And so I really wanted to just be here this morning to, again, learn from you all. And I think part of the thing that I've learned in 3 short but seemingly long months as Speaker of the Council is that it's really important not to spend all day in City Hall. It's really important not to get holed up in an office reading policy papers and taking meeting after meeting, but to actually go out and be amongst New Yorkers, to be in neighborhoods and communities all across the city, to be with my amazing colleagues in the council like Ydanis Rodriguez in his district, to understand the needs and see the needs and meet the people who are meeting those needs. And that is why I am here this morning. I come with an open hand. I come in the spirit of cooperation and partnership and in being a future ally. And I want you all to know that I am immensely grateful for the work that you all do and the work that your organizations do day in and day out. And so I look forward to getting to know you more. I look forward to seeing you on the steps of City Hall. I look forward to seeing you in neighborhoods across the city. And I look forward to learning more about your organizations and the communities that you work with directly, but also from my dear, dear friend and brother, Ydanis Rodriguez. Thank you all very much for having me this morning.
So before our great speaker take your question, I want to highlight the person in charge of Precinct 33, Inspector Brea. So thank you for being here. Also, the Jose and Edwin from the Puerto Rican and the Mexican Institute, that together with Ramona, they're doing a great job. They put together the second summit, SOL, the second summit of Latinos in New York City. We will follow to see how also the schedule will allow for the speaker to pass by as we did last year. But this is the second one. And I want also, before the question, to say thank you to the staff, because they are the one who put this event together. So a big applause for them. Vladimir, Stephanie, Jose Luis, my former student chief of staff, and Carmen Partner too. So a big round of applause for it. And as we are holding this event here, they already have 2 other events today, one at 1 p.m. With the business owners of Dyckman about the bike lane, expecting around 100 people. And Vladimir has the ISVP for 300 people for the meeting that I have at 7 p.m. at Holy Rood Church. So thank you for the great job that you're doing all of that. Vamos ahora a cualquier pregunta que podamos tener. Recordémonos de que queremos mantener alrededor de lo que es lo más importante, que es el presente y el futuro de nuestra comunidad, y cómo con el speaker tenemos un aliado para nosotros seguir desarrollando nuestra comunidad. Rosita.
Yes. Oh, great. As you know, my name is Rosita Romero. I am the Executive Director of the Dominican Women's Development Center. And I thank you very much for coming to our neighborhood and really applaud the concept that you have of better distribution of resources throughout the city. I would like to comment and see if you have, you can share your plans with me in terms of childcare. Childcare has Washington Heights and Inwood have the second unmet need for childcare services in the city. We are second to the South Bronx. And we are lucky, that we have had the support of Council Member Ydanis Rodriguez, who has helped us to get funding for ACS for a childcare center that where we serve 110 children that we're looking to expand. And the most important thing is that those 110 children, we're not only providing childcare services, we're preparing them to excel academically and to attend the best schools in the nation. That is the goal that the council member wants us to make sure that we have. So just to share some ideas of expansion of childcare services in this community and others. And the second thing is that I would like to invite you to the first LGBTQ drop-in center in Washington Heights, which we are very happy to sponsor. We opened it up in September of last year, and with funds with Senator Marisol Alcantara. And we have a lot of work to do in there. It's specifically for homeless and unstably housed youth. So just what you can share with us of the possibilities of helping those two areas?
Great. Thank you very much. So I don't want to get too much into the geeky municipal government weeds of the budget process, but I'll tell you that, whatever the local needs are, you can bet that Ydanis is screaming at me about it during the budget process in a good way, talking about the unmet needs and what is necessary. We're going through our budget process right now. The City Council is releasing its preliminary budget response after we had a month of hearings next week, and then we'll go through our executive budget process. I'm not going to talk about everything that we're putting in our budget response, but we are putting in some big items in our budget response on childcare, on increasing funding for childcare across the city. One of the issues we have right now is that we have early learn centers, and the pay for folks that work, predominantly women of color, who work at early learn centers is $30,000 less than the same job at a different type of institution. And so we're pushing for pay parity to ensure that people that work at early learn centers are making a living wage so that we can actually keep them in their jobs, who are teaching really babies, children, toddlers, people that aren't even in pre-K yet. So pre-K has been a great thing, but it's not a substitute for actual childcare. And it's helped in meaningful ways. CUNY, we also want to work with CUNY on actual childcare for students, young students who may have children, to set up childcare centers in CUNY institutions all across the city. Councilmember Cumbo has been pushing for that. She is a new mom with a 10-month-old baby, and she's been talked about that actually yesterday to me. So these are issues that we're interested in, but if you have any suggestions for us on specific areas that you think we should look at, if anyone has ideas for us that we should look at, let Ydanis know, and of course we will look at that through the budget process. Again, I don't say this to set expectations, it's just the way the process works. We negotiate the budget with the mayor, and we have a lot of things we try to accomplish. Sometimes we can accomplish a lot of things, sometimes we're not as successful, but one of the things we are focused on is how to make the lives better for children all across New York City. And so I look forward to learning from you on that. I am very excited about this drop-in center in Washington Heights. It's historic. I would love to come visit. I am really proud that a month ago, one of the first package of bills we passed in the City Council was supporting runaway homeless youth in New York City, upping the age of services from 21 years old to 24 years old for runaway homeless youth who weren't eligible for city services before. They were my bills, so I'm really proud. Before I was elected to the council, I was on the board of the Ellie Forney Center, which is one of the largest organizations serving runaway homeless youth in New York City. So I would love to come visit. I will do it with Ydanis. We will make it happen. Thank you very much.
So because of the timing of the speaker and other things, well, let's go with Angela, Altagracia, Kenny, and Maria, and then we will follow with any other question. And other speakers say, I promise them, this is about also for him to see the faces of the leaders of the academic institution and the non-for-profit, that we have here doing a great job. So there's going to be other follow-up too.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ydanis, for your leadership, and Speaker, welcome to our neighborhood. My name is Angela Fernandez. I'm the Executive Director and Supervising Attorney of the Northern Manhattan Coalition for Immigrant Rights, and I'm also on the board of the Civilian Complaint Review Board.
You guys rock.
Thank you. Our organization has been working at the intersection of immigration law and criminal law for over 35 years, and the reason why that's important is because what Trump is doing now is what we've seen other administrations do, except he's doing it in a much more extreme fashion. And so city funding for legal services for immigration is actually so much more powerful than most people know. Number one, a deportation case with a private attorney can cost $25,000. When an organization like ours receives funding to be able to provide that for free, that's $25,000 that stays in the community, circulating in our stores, paying for nannies, paying for childcare, a whole host of services money that stays in the community. So that's why this kind of funding is very, very important. Second, as we saw from the protest last year during the Muslim ban and what happened at JFK, who is at the front line? Attorneys. Where is the fight happening in immigration right now? In the courtrooms. Attorney General Sessions just said that he is going to implement a quota system on immigration judges to deport people every month. So the second piece I also wanted to share is workers. Immigrant workers, specifically around day labor centers. Day labor centers, and our organization is part of a coalition of day labor centers, a few in each borough, and we just opened the first day labor center in Northern Manhattan in January. And the work that is done there, number one, OSHA 10 training, OSHA 30 training, all of that saves lives. So what we would love as part of the coalition is to know if we could meet with you and speak to you more about that, because a construction worker dies every couple of months. And part of it is because they would have been scammed on a training from someone who's charged them thousands of dollars for that, or never received training at all. So those are the two things that I want to share with you, and I want to know if those initiatives are going to continue, because like I said, they save a tremendous amount of money, keep money in the communities, and save people's lives.
So I really believe that Speaker Mark Viverito, one of the most amazing, incredible things, and a legacy item for her, is her leadership on immigration, on legal services related to immigration, long before Donald Trump was elected to the White House.
Yep.
And she was a leader on that, and she deserves an enormous amount of credit for her leadership on that. The council, as you know, in a discretionary way through our initiative process, funds, I think, over $10 million in legal services, not just on immigration, but legal services for the working poor, legal services on housing initiatives, legal services in a variety of ways. And I see those initiatives continuing. We haven't gone through the budget process yet, so I'm not going to speak for all my colleagues, but I really believe in those initiatives, and those are initiatives that I've supported in the past. So I look forward to continuing to work with the amazing organizations like yours from across the city that provide this work in a great way. On the second piece on day laborers, the council has had another initiative related to day laborers, and part of the construction safety bill that we passed last year carved out a training fund and program to be able to get dollars to day laborers to actually enroll in these OSHA courses across the city to help people get protected. I can't commit to a meeting, not because I don't want to meet, but because it's not an exaggeration, and I'm not complaining about this. I have like a backlog of 400 meetings, which I don't know how I'm going to do all the meetings, seriously, because I'm trying to, again, be out in the community, and everyone wants to meet, and I'm trying to go across the city. So I'll be happy to have staff talk to you, and I would be happy to continue to talk with Ydanis about the issues that matter to you. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but it may take a little while. And that's not me being unresponsive, it's me being honest about kind of the backlog that I have right now. But I look forward to continuing to support both those initiatives on legal services and on helping day laborers. All of the construction fatalities that we've seen over the last 5 years, most of them, not all of them, but almost a majority of them occurred in my own district. And the reason my own district is I have more development going on in my district than any other district in the entire city. So I have gone to site after site, scene after scene of a construction worker fatality. To me, it's not academic. It's not reading about it in the news. I've gone, I've seen, I've talked to the families. I know how horrific it is, and I know how so many day laborers have been taken advantage of, and we need to make sure that they're protected and know their rights.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'm here to present myself for you to remain the organization we represent as Dominican Sunday Community Services Organization. And we have here a brochure for you because I know your time. And I would like you to take a moment to read about our service. Thank you. In our program, and I hope in the future you can pass by. We assist because Ydanis Rodriguez still support us as a nonprofit organization. Thank you, Ydanis, and we're ready to support the plan that you have with the speaker for help the organization in Washington Heights. Thank you, and I hope to see you in my place.
Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, you too.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kenny Abreu. I'm the president of the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce, and you're going to be seeing a lot of me at City Hall because I'm a big advocate of the MWBE.
Oh, great.
Just want to thank you, Ydanis, for your leadership and you for being here. And I just have two things for now. And one of them is the Small Business and Job Survivor Act that is very important to us, to our small business community. As you know, the majority of the business owners are immigrants. We have close to 400,000 small businesses in the city of New York that provide the majority of the jobs of the city of New York. And we lose them every day because of the landlord, because of the rent going up, because they can't negotiate with the landlord. Ydanis is the one carrying that legislation right now, and I stand 100% behind him with the rest of our community to get that legislation passed, and we want to count with your support. We got to get it done this time. We've been trying for years, and I think it's about time that we get it done. Otherwise, we're going to lose all of our small businesses, in not just in this community, but in the entire city of New York. And then the second thing is, as president of the New York Women's Chamber, I'm all about women's economic empowerment. That's all you're going to hear me talk about most of the time. And that is a conversation that needs to happen at City Hall, which is still not happening. I mean, we have little things here and there, but we're still not coming to the table to come up with an agenda to economically empower our women. Our women are the majority of the providers in their homes, the majority of the small business owners as well, the majority of the ones that are really taking care of everybody. So we need to have that conversation. I hope that we can have that conversation with you.
It's good to meet you. And on the first point, on the Small Business Job Survival Act, which I'm really proud that Ydanis is the prime sponsor of, it was reintroduced, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. I was a sponsor of that bill the last 4 years. The biggest issue I hear about locally in my own district is the closure of small businesses, empty storefronts, the loss of the dry cleaner, the bodega, the shoe repair store, the local small business, which makes up the fabric of a neighborhood and of a community. And so we are going to have a hearing on that bill, and I couldn't think of a better person to carry that bill than Ydanis. So I look forward to us having that hearing. I look forward to seeing you at City Hall testifying in support of that bill. And we are going to have a hearing on that bill. And I know that Ydanis has already been having conversations with members of the council about gaining even more support for the bill. On the second piece, I am really ashamed, I guess is the right way to put it, that out of 51 council members, only 11 are women. 11 out of 51. It's embarrassing. And there is an initiative called 21 and 21, which seeks to elect 21 women to the city council in 2021. That's not even half the council, but it's almost double what we have now. One of the things that was important to me that when I became speaker, every single woman of the council is the chair of a committee. I really thought it was important that all 11 women chaired a committee that was important to them, important to their communities, important to the city of New York. So when it comes to an empowerment level at the council level, I've really tried to be a partner on that. I'm proud that Lori Cumbo is our majority leader. First time a woman of color has ever been majority leader of the city council. And again, Speaker Mark Viverito and the Women's Caucus and leadership in the council really came up with an amazing initiative called the Young Women's Initiative, which is all about empowering young women and girls by investing in organizations from across the city that do the type of work that you're talking about. So I, of course, am continuing our support of that initiative. We can always do better, and I would love to learn from you and for you to, of course, educate me and Ydanis, who consider ourselves proud feminists and supporters of women, to what else we can do, how else we can do better. There's, of course, many things we can do legislatively. We're passing a package of bills next week on over a dozen bills on sexual harassment in New York City and preventing sexual harassment, given the moment that we're living in. We're doing more on eliminating the pay gap in New York City, which is why I talked about the pay parity issue when it comes to childcare for childcare workers who are making 30% less than other workers in the same jobs, predominantly women of color. So on all of these issues, I consider myself an ally, an advocate, a friend, and a supporter. But as Ydanis said when he introduced me earlier, when it comes to issues of women, when it comes to issues of communities of color, again, I want to be educated, I want to listen, and I want to learn. And I also want to recognize that I may not be the best person to speak on those issues. Not because I don't want to speak, but because sometimes there are better people to speak than me. Sometimes a woman should be speaking on those issues in the city council. Or when it comes to immigration, it should be Ydanis Rodriguez who has lived that, not me. So I want to empower their voices. I want to amplify their voices. I want to support their own stories and their own goals and priorities. And it's always an educational experience to be able to learn more and to try to help communities that have been marginalized and not gotten the support they've needed historically.
Good morning. Thank you, Speaker, for joining us, and Ydanis for making this happen. My name is Maria Lizaldo, aka Wonder Woman. I am the Executive Director of Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, NIMIC, and for the last 39 years, we've been on the forefront of providing legal services when it comes to housing and utilizing our settlement house model to support additional service needs. My question to you, we're currently in the district that has the highest number of rent-stabilized units than in any other borough. And so what are your thoughts in terms of how do we pressure the state to strengthen rent stabilization laws, and how do we sort of slow this train down to gentrification, because we're bleeding apartments every day. Tenants are being evicted, and I know access to counsel will guarantee legal representation, but that will be in 5 years, and by then we will have lost many units and many apartments. So how do we work with you and your office to fix this?
First of all, thank you for the incredible work that you do every day and the countless number of people who you help and serve. I don't know if we have time to talk about the gentrification question, not because I don't want to talk about it, because it's such an immense thing to talk about that's affected by so many things. But on the rent law issue, again, 2 weeks ago, we passed a bill in the council extending rent stabilization and rent control for the next 3 years at the city level. Those were my bills. And I passed those bills 3 years ago before I was speaker. State law says that the city council has to reauthorize rent control and rent stabilization when HPD conducts the housing vacancy survey every 3 years. And 3 years ago, they were my bills before I was speaker. And 2 weeks ago, they were my bills that we passed now as speaker. So I am a huge fighter in this battle on strengthening our rent laws, not just renewing our rent laws. I was arrested in the Capitol outside of the governor's office in 2015, protesting with tenant leaders and other elected officials from across the city asking for not just a renewal on our rent laws, but a strengthening of our rent laws, getting rid of the preferential rent issues that we see, getting rid of the MCI issues, major capital improvements that are passed on to tenants, getting rid of the perverse incentives that exist for landlords to try to drive people out of apartments and then use the vacancy bonus to up the rents. All of these loopholes, gaping loopholes that exist in our rent laws need to be closed and strengthened. And the only way that that is going to happen is if we have a unified, progressive, Democratic majority state Senate. That is what will allow us next year to work on these rent laws and strengthening the rent laws because they come up for renewal next June. So I'm going to be at a press conference this weekend with tenant leaders from across the city at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn talking about the strengthening of rent laws. I'm very close with a lot of the organizations that are leading this work, and I'm sure I'm going to see you at meetings and rallies and in Albany and at events and on the steps, continuing to work on these issues, but I'm very passionate about it. The number one way to help displacement initially is not building more housing, which is expensive, though we need to build more housing. It needs to be low-income affordable housing. The number one way to do that is to protect the existing affordable housing that we have, and the way to do that is to strengthen our rent laws, which protect 1.5 million apartments across New York City as of right now. So I look forward to seeing with you, working with you, and I am dedicated to this fight from now until June and then even after that.
And I'm sorry, but I know, Rose, I had to send them, Rose, but we will follow with the staff. Thank you. Gracias al speaker por venir con nosotros, darnos el respeto que merecemos. Gracias a ustedes. Thank you. Anything you need, let me know. Okay? Do the best.